My phone started vibrating at 3:07 a.m. Not buzzing, not chiming, vibrating nonstop like it refused to let me ignore it. I was half asleep in my tiny London flat, the rain tapping against the window, my alarm still 3 hours away. When I saw my mother's name on the screen, my stomach tightened before I even answered. She was already crying when the video connected. Not quiet tears, loud, shaky sobs, the kind that make you feel guilty before you've even done anything wrong. "We never see you anymore," she said. "The kids keep asking where you are. Don't you care about your family at all?" I sat up in bed, rubbing my face, trying to wake up enough to respond without snapping. She kept talking about Christmas, about how everyone would finally be together, about how this year could be different. I'd heard that sentence before. She didn't mention money, not directly, but she didn't have to. She tilted the phone just enough for me to see the living room behind her, new decorations, a tree already up, wrapped presents stacked neatly underneath. And then she sighed. "We just couldn't do this without you." That was the hook. It always was. 10 hours later, I was booking a flight I couldn't afford, rearranging work meetings, telling myself I was doing the right thing. Again. I convinced myself that this time would be warm hugs and home-cooked food. That this time, I wouldn't feel like a guest who'd overstayed her usefulness. I ignored the familiar weight in my chest, the one that always showed up right before I made a decision that benefited everyone except me. By the time my plane landed in San Diego, I was exhausted, dehydrated, and running on hope instead of logic. And I had no idea that the moment I rang that doorbell, everything I believed about my family was about to collapse. Because the first thing my mother saw wasn't my face. It was my suitcase. And what she said next would change everything. The door flew open. No hug, no smile, no "how was your flight?" My mother's eyes dropped straight to my suitcase. "You'll watch the kids," she said casually. "We're leaving early tomorrow." I blinked once, twice. Behind her, my brother stepped into view, sunglasses still on his head, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. His kids were bouncing off the walls, loud and energetic, the exact opposite of how I felt after crossing an ocean overnight. "Well, look who finally made it," he said, smirking. "Try not to let them wipe their hands on you. You look fragile." They laughed. All of them. I stood there, jet-lagged, stiff, and holding a suitcase full of gifts I'd paid for with money I barely had, and somehow I was the joke. That's when it happened. Not anger, not tears. Something quieter. Something clicked off. I smiled, set my suitcase down, walked inside. If they expected me to protest, they were disappointed. If they expected guilt or gratitude, they got silence. In the kitchen, I noticed a glossy stack of papers spread across the counter. Resort photos, flight times, a full itinerary, color-printed, neatly organized. My mother tapped it proudly. "This is why we needed you here," she said. "The kids will stay with you. We deserve a break." I looked at the reservation details. And then I recognized the last 4 digits on the payment confirmation. My card. They weren't asking me to help. They had already decided I would. That's when I realized something important. I hadn't flown across the world to save Christmas. I'd flown here to end something that should have ended years ago. And they had no idea what was about to hit them. Before I ever booked that flight, something had felt off. For the first time, I didn't immediately send money when my phone buzzed with another small favor. I didn't rush to fix things. I waited. And while I waited, I started noticing patterns I'd ignored for years. Emergency messages that lined up perfectly with shopping sales. Complaints about bills followed by photos from restaurants I'd never been able to afford. Constant stress, but never any real change. So I started saving things. Screenshots, bank transfers, payment confirmations, apology texts promising repayment soon. And then I found something that made my stomach drop. An email from the bank. My name was on it. Not as a contact. As a co-borrower. A mortgage I didn't remember agreeing to. One I'd been quietly supporting every time payments came up short. Suddenly, everything made sense. The late-night calls, the panic, the pressure to always say yes. I wasn't just helping. I was holding everything up. So while my mother cried about missing me, I did something else. I booked a call with a financial advisor. Downloaded 3 years of statements. Created a document that showed exactly where my money had gone. I didn't come home empty-handed. I came home prepared. And standing in that kitchen, looking at their vacation plans funded by my silence, I knew this wasn't going to end with babysitting. It was going to end with the truth. And once I said it out loud, there would be no going back. I asked everyone to sit down. My dad took the head of the table like it was a formal meeting. My brother barely looked up from his phone. My mom hovered near the counter, already uneasy. I opened my laptop. "Before you go anywhere," I said calmly, "we need to talk about money." Groans, sighs, eye rolls. Perfect. I pulled up the spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, notes. One by one, I read them out loud. Mortgage shortfalls, medical expenses, credit card bailouts, utilities, subscriptions, emergencies. 3 years of payments. I didn't rush. I let the numbers breathe. My brother straightened in his chair when he recognized his own messages. My mother covered her mouth. My father stopped pretending to be bored. Then I scrolled to the bottom. The total sat there, bold and unavoidable. Just over $60,000. No one spoke. Finally, I slid a thin stack of papers across the table. "This isn't a lawsuit," I said. "It's a record, an acknowledgement." My father exploded. "We're family." I met his eyes. Family doesn't hide debt in their daughter's name. Silence. And then I clicked to the next screen. Their vacation reservation. Status, canceled. That's when panic replaced anger. Because this wasn't a discussion anymore. It was the moment they realized the safety net was gone. And the consequences were just getting started. The word CANCELLED sat on the screen like it had been carved there. My dad leaned forward, squinting at the laptop as if getting closer would somehow change it. "That's not funny," he said. "Fix it." "I already did," I replied, 3 days ago. My mom's voice trembled. What do you mean 3 days ago?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "The resort booking, the flights, the package deal," I said calmly. "They were all made with my card, my account, so I canceled them." Jason stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. "You had no right." I looked at him. "I paid for them, that makes it my right." The room erupted. My dad shouted about disrespect. My mom cried about ruined memories. Jason paced like a trapped animal, muttering about the kids and how unfair this was. I waited. Because I wasn't finished. "There is no vacation," I said once the noise died down. "Not without my money, and not without my consent, and that ends today." My dad pointed at me like I was a stranger. "So this is revenge?" "No," I said. "This is me opting out." That's when I opened the next email. The one from the bank. And the look on my father's face told me he already knew exactly what was coming. The email header was simple. "Mortgage account update. Action required. My father went pale. You told me it was paperwork, I said quietly, turning the screen toward them. You told me it wouldn't affect me. My mom shook her head frantically. We didn't think. You didn't think I'd ever stop, I finished. I clicked through the statements, missed payments, partial payments, fees I'd quietly covered to protect my credit. For years, I continued, every time you came up short, it hit me too. Jason swallowed hard. Wait, if your name on the loan. Yes, I said. I'm legally responsible. Then I clicked again. A video window popped up. My financial advisor appeared on screen. She greeted me politely. Then she explained, calmly, professionally, exactly what being a co-borrower meant. And what happened when one decided to leave. If the remaining borrowers cannot qualify on their own, she said, the lender may require refinancing or sale of the property. My mom gasped. You'd make us sell the house, my dad snapped. No, I said. The bank would, I'm just stepping aside. The advisor signed off. The room felt smaller without her voice filling the silence. My dad whispered, You're going to make us homeless. I met his eyes. I'm going to stop letting you gamble with my future. And then I told them the next part. The part that ensured there was no turning back. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded letter. This is formal notice, I said. I'm ending all automatic payments tied to this house. My mom's breath hitched, but that's how we pay for groceries. That's how I paid for groceries, I replied. I opened one final tab on my laptop. A list. Mortgage supplements. Utilities. Streaming services. Phone plans. Grocery deliveries. Car payments. All paid by me. As of today, I said, hovering my cursor over the first option, these stop. Jason panicked. You can't do this all at once. I looked at him. You're 34, you have kids. This should have started years ago. One by one, I clicked cancel. Confirmation emails flooded my phone. My mom cried openly now. My dad stared at the table like it had betrayed him. This is cruel, he muttered. No, I said softly. This is me refusing to disappear quietly anymore. I closed the laptop and stood. I'm done being the villain in the story you tell to avoid responsibility. I grabbed my suitcase. That's when my dad exploded. If you walk out that door, he shouted, don't come back. I paused and finally said the sentence that ended everything. If I'm only welcome when I'm paying, I said, then I was never really welcome at all. Silence. Then my dad pointed to the door. Get out. So I did. The California sun felt blinding after the darkness of that kitchen. I dragged my suitcase to the curb and ordered an Uber. The driver asked where I was going. I gave him an address my parents didn't know. Because 6 months earlier, I'd bought a small condo in downtown San Diego. Quietly, carefully, without telling anyone. It wasn't big, it wasn't fancy. But it was mine. When I stepped inside that night, the silence felt strange, and then freeing. No guilt. No panic. No buzzing phone. I canceled the last remaining shared accounts. Sat on the floor with a cheap cup of coffee. And breathed. For the first time in years, there was no one to save. Only me. And I didn't know it yet, but the fallout was just beginning. If I'm only welcome when I'm paying, I said, then I was never really welcome at all. Silence. Then my dad pointed to the door. Get out. So I did. The California sun felt blinding after the darkness of that kitchen. I dragged my suitcase to the curb and ordered an Uber. The driver asked where I was going. I gave him an address my parents didn't know. Because 6 months earlier, I'd bought a small condo in downtown San Diego. Quietly, carefully, without telling anyone. It wasn't big, it wasn't fancy. But it was mine. When I stepped inside that night, the silence felt strange, and then freeing. No guilt. No panic. No buzzing phone. I canceled the last remaining shared accounts. Sat on the floor with a cheap cup of coffee. And breathed. For the first time in years, there was no one to save. Only me. And I didn't know it yet, but the fallout was just beginning. The first sign that things were unraveling didn't come from a phone call. It came from Facebook. A week after I moved into my condo, my friend Emma sent me a screenshot with one sentence attached. "Have you seen this?" It was my dad's profile. A long post about betrayal, about children who forget who raised them, about how some people choose money over blood the moment they think they're better than their family. He never used my name. He didn't need to. The comments filled up fast. Sympathy, prayers, people offering help. Someone even suggested setting up a fundraiser. My stomach twisted. This was exactly what I'd warned them about, turning themselves into victims, turning me into the villain. For a moment, I paced my living room, phone in hand, ready to call him, ready to beg him to stop, ready to offer something, anything, to make it go away. That version of me was loud. But another voice was louder. The one that remembered the spreadsheet. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I emailed my financial advisor and asked one simple question. What else do I need to protect myself? Her reply changed everything. My advisor's response was calm, professional, precise. She told me to document everything. Save every transfer. Every bill. Every payment. And then she said something that made my chest tighten. When one person has been unofficially supporting a household, she wrote, it can trigger reviews once that support stops. I didn't need instructions. I understood. A few days later, my mom texted. Did you talk to the bank? They sent a letter. Another message followed. They want updated documents. Then another. Why is the IRS asking questions? I didn't answer right away. Because for the first time, I wasn't smoothing things over behind the scenes. I wasn't fixing what they broke. The systems they'd been avoiding were finally paying attention. And without my money buffering the impact, reality was arriving fast. Jason texted next. Can we talk? I agreed to meet him. And when he walked into that coffee shop, I barely recognized him. Jason looked exhausted. Dark circles, stubble, a delivery bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't joke, he didn't tease. He sat down and went straight to it. Dad needs to stop posting, he said. It's making everything worse. I nodded. Then he sighed. I didn't get it before. He told me about extra shifts, about selling his old gadgets, about moving into a smaller place so he could take on a roommate. I always knew if things got bad, he admitted, someone would text you. That sentence hit harder than anything else he said. Meanwhile, my mom was selling designer bags online. The new TV disappeared. Their truck got repossessed one gray morning. The life they'd built on my silence was collapsing. And my dad. He never apologized. He just kept posting. Hopping guilt would drag me back. It didn't. Because I finally understood something. If people only miss you when you stop paying, they don't miss you. They miss your wallet. By the time Christmas rolled around again, everything had changed. I decorated my condo slowly. Cheap lights, a second-hand couch, a tiny fake tree in the corner. It wasn't impressive, but it was peaceful. Then one rainy evening, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was my mom. She looked smaller, tired, holding a reusable grocery bag like armor. Inside the bag was an envelope. A check. Not much, but real. "I sold things," she said. "I'm working extra hours. I can't pretend anymore." She cried, quietly, honestly. For the first time, the money was flowing the other way. And that mattered more than the amount. Before she left, she asked one question. "Do you think someday we could have a Christmas without money involved?" I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was simple. That future depended on whether they could love me without needing something from me. And not everyone can. After my mom left that night, I sat alone on my couch for a long time. The check rested on the table between my coffee mug and the remote, like it didn't quite belong in my life yet. It wasn't the money that stayed with me. It was what she finally admitted. That she'd known. That she'd justified it. That it had been easier to let me carry the weight than to confront my dad or herself. I didn't cash the check right away. I needed to know it wasn't a performance. Over the next few weeks, I watched quietly. Jason kept working. My mom kept selling things. No late-night guilt calls. No emergencies that somehow lined up with sales. And my dad. He went quiet. No posts, no vague accusations, just silence. That silence told me more than any apology ever could. Because when manipulation stops working, manipulators stop talking. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing peace. I was living inside it. Distance doesn't fix people, but it reveals them. With space, I saw things clearly for the first time. How often love had been conditional. How often approval came with a price tag. How easily my boundaries were labeled selfish. I wasn't cruel for leaving. I was exhausted. And exhaustion isn't a moral failure. I rebuilt my life quietly. Focused on work. Paid down my own debts. Filled my home slowly. One chair, one lamp, one decision that didn't require permission. My credit recovered. My anxiety softened. My phone stopped feeling like a weapon. And the most surprising thing, I didn't miss them the way I thought I would. I missed the idea of a family I'd never really had. That realization hurt. But it also set me free. A few months later, my dad tried one last time. A text. Short. Careful. "Your mom's struggling. We could use some help." I stared at the screen. Old instincts screamed at me to respond. To fix. To send something. To smooth it over. Instead, I typed one sentence. "I'm happy to talk. I'm not willing to pay." The typing bubble appeared. Then disappeared. That was it. No argument. No explosion. No apology. Just the end of an era. Because boundaries don't need to be loud to be final. They just need to be enforced. Hear what no one tells you. Walking away doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels lonely. It feels terrifying. It feels like you're betraying everything you were taught to value. But over time, it feels like oxygen. Family doesn't mean unlimited access. Love doesn't mean self-sacrifice without limits. And loyalty doesn't require you to drown so others can stay comfortable. The people who truly love you will adjust. The ones who don't will call you selfish. Let them. Because choosing yourself isn't abandonment. It's survival. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop paying the price for someone else's bad decisions. One night, months later, I realized something quietly monumental. I hadn't checked my phone in hours. No anxiety. No waiting for a message. No bracing myself for another emergency that wasn't really an emergency. I was sitting on my couch, lights dimmed, rain tapping against the window, the same sound I used to hear in London, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt calm. I thought about the version of myself who boarded that plane believing love meant endurance, who thought being needed was the same as being valued, who believed saying no would destroy everything. She was wrong. Nothing collapsed. What collapsed was an illusion. And in its place, something quieter formed, a life where my worth wasn't measured by what I could provide. That peace didn't come from winning an argument. It came from finally stepping out of one. People ask me sometimes how my family is doing now. The truth. They're fine. Not thriving. Not falling apart. Just living within their means. My mom learned to budget. Jason learned to hustle. My dad learned that silence doesn't get applause. And me. I learned that I'm not responsible for rewriting someone else's mistakes just because we share DNA. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's real. No guilt. No transactions. No hidden expectations. And that's the difference. Because when money is removed from the equation, you finally see what's left. If you've listened this far, I want you to sit with this. If you stopped paying, stopped fixing, stopped rescuing, who in your life would still show up? Would they miss you? Or would they miss what you provide? Walking away doesn't mean you don't love them. Sometimes it means you love yourself enough to stop disappearing. So ask yourself honestly, are you staying out of love? Or out of fear? Because the moment you stop confusing sacrifice with loyalty is the moment your life finally begins.